Well, big win overall for Order. They finally get a little bit of consistency in the win column rather than the loss column. We move forward though, and we are done with the Oceanic teams for the night. And we're also done with those two other guys, and we've got the two sexy gentlemen, Manic Raven, coming on in. Welcome to the virtual desk. Lovely to have you both here. Look, let's just move straight forward. Okay, we've already talked about the OCE teams. No one wants to listen about them. Elevate 7th Heaven coming up, Raven. And this is surely going to be an absolute banger. I'm predicting 8-7 only because Guz said we're moving along pretty quick tonight.
Yeah, Guz has definitely cursed us time-wise. But no, I'm actually really excited about this match because, as we all know, Elevate have been struggling so far this stage. They were just clear outright champions in stage 1, but it is far from that kind of performance here in stage 2. And similar could be said for 7th Heaven, but it feels like they're just a little bit behind where they were last stage. So this is a big test for Elevate right here to dig deep and really turn this around. And you will see too, they are playing with a sub-player from their academy roster this time. So maybe this is the little spark that they need to try and get back to winning form.
Feels like definitely a spark is what's needed at the moment for Elevate. And look, coming up against 7th Heaven, I know that I have definitely predicted them, but I would say that Elevate are probably looking to better in this engagement. Both rosters have a good stake to this claim, but when you look at the names that we have on Elevate and what they were able to do last stage, you really can't go past them. Onigiri and Napu had an unbelievable season, and even to the extent, I believe Onigiri has been having a pretty decent season so far in stage 2. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they've got in the department of let's say the second half of this season, because certainly the first half has not been kind to them.
Can't be understated, of course. That's going to be a bit of a loss, losing out Angry X for tonight. For Elevate, BG Man comes in. Let's look at their opponents, 7th Heaven, though. And this is a team that maybe has a bit of orderism about them this stage. They have had some ups and they've had some downs. Overall, we know what they're capable of. Cyan comes back in to the lineup just like last week. Edie, Spirited, Souffle, Pika. These guys have got the names. They've got the firepower, Raven. But at the moment, they just don't have the win. Second last currently, but they have an opportunity here against Elevate to maybe steal some points.
Yeah, just really struggling with the consistency this stage. And again, I think they do have a good opportunity here. You would argue that this is a weakened Elevate. This is a good opportunity for them to be able to bounce ahead. On top of the fact, Elevate have also brought in a sub-player for whatever reason. That might be good or bad. We will find out soon. But yeah, look, I think 7th Heaven in some ways have found some shining lights. Spirited, for example, this stage has actually been really great for 7th Heaven, and Souffle as well is actually really performing strongly on the stats board, but they just haven't really been able to string together victories. That's obviously what matters the most in terms of the standings.
It's always an issue when we look back at the games that they've played as well. I just don't... That game last week against Wildcard, I think that's a huge misstep for 7th Heaven. Sure, they were playing with Sion, which was the sub, and is now, coming back into the roster for this week. And that will be a big question mark, and maybe something we can talk about in the interview should they win. But that is a massive should at this point. However, they do have the firepower. You do look to the players like Souffle to step up here in this matchup.
I was going to look at the map vetoes and see where we will be heading for this particular game. 7th Heaven, unfortunately, are going to allow Elevate to send them over to Oregon, which is a pretty decent map for Elevate, Raven. And while they had the final ban, they had the final decision, they got rid of Chalet, and they're honestly probably winners out of this map veto.
Yeah, look, it definitely Elevate are looking strong on Oregon. Recent performance definitely indicates that at a local level for sure. Haven't played it as much in APAC South, especially this stage, but regardless, we've seen some really good performances from Elevate on Oregon. That being said though, same can be said from 7th Heaven time to time. It's certainly more inconsistent, but I've had some pretty big wins on Oregon. Casting back to last stage, they beat Order 7-3 on Oregon. Actually, that was this stage. That's quite significant. There's a couple of victories from last stage as well. Just trying to look back here. Some really close overtime matches, 6-8 losses, but 6-8 loss to Knights and Elevate, both on Oregon last stage. That's actually, not that bad. So I think 7th Heaven certainly aren't pushovers on Oregon.
I would say that they've got a good a good opportunity. Like, I know we were just talking before the break, Xenox, and you're a mad Elevate fanboy on Oregon for this matchup. But honestly, I see that 7th Heaven have had some really good matches on it in the past. Whether they're going to replicate it here in Stage 2 with their sub, I just don't know, honestly. I just am not completely convinced by it. But the one thing that we know about 7th Heaven is you just cannot write them off. They have consistently shown us that no matter what we think of them, what we think of their current standing, they'll just flip it on their head on a dime. You're taking that's a very deep breath, Xenox. What have I said that's disappointed you there?
Look, all I'm saying is I thought you had a couch behind you, but apparently you're sitting on the fence. So we're going to throw it over to our casters for this game. These are your two SI quality, high quality casters. It is Dev and it is Guz.
My God, I would love to just be roasting Xenox right now, but he has been on fire with his throws. I don't know what it is. I guess it's because we haven't had any Villa tonight, but he is in form. Let's see if Elevate can have a return to form, Guz, because after being first in all of APAC Stage 1, they have a lot of work to reclaim that title.
Yeah, it's been a slow start for Elevate in Stage 2, looking to bounce back, and 7th Heaven with a disappointing result last Playday, also looking to resurge. So Oregon will be the battlefield, and I have no doubt this will be a great game of Siege.
Bit optimistic there, Guz, but yes, it should be Oregon. Here we are. The second time tonight. Elevate have an incredible record on this map, as Xenox pointed out, but that is mostly domestic within Thailand. At 7th Heaven, similar, some good wins and a couple losses on this map, but again, domestic. The big talking point today, though, for us, Guz, is going to be the fact that both of these teams are playing with fill-ins. We do have Elevate subbing out Angry X and getting BG Man, who plays for, as Raven said, the Elevate Academy roster. We also have 7th Heaven's captain, Ray, subbed out for Cyan, just as we have had in weeks in the past. As we jump into these map vetoes, something Specca talked about is that Flores, and already banned out here.
Yeah, Flores incredibly potent on Oregon. Those Rotero drones, 4 of which he has, can be used to flush out a lot of the common positions. You think blue bunker, you think upstairs pit, and the list is almost endless. Nomad, a little bit more traditional, will make those rotations a little bit more difficult to cut off when you're on the side of the attack, and that means that Elevate in the first half will need to be on their toes.
Elevate just absolutely love their Nomad bans. It is their most banned operator by far, and they just are happy to leave Thatcher in as long as they leave those gateways open for their flanks by banning that Nomad. The Wamai, also a very common ban for them. It's going to make it a little bit easier to clear util dump heavy setups, such as in Blue Bunker. Now that the Flores is out of the game, you're probably going to be trying to use a lot of explosives. That's a bit easier with Wamai gone. Valkyrie to round it out.
Yeah, nothing standing out as being too surprising, I guess. Some may be surprised to see the Thatcher sneak it through, but again, with Elevate tending to take Nomad off the board and likely not wanting to double up on the Flores, as it does constrict the attack a little bit, we are going to see him make it through, and I would expect that we do see some Thatcher play at some stage this evening between these two. Now, keep in mind that unlike the first two matches, these are now Southeast Asian teams, not Oceanic, so we are going to see a bit of a shift in the play style. We're likely going to see, I would hope, slightly tidier attacks with a hint of aggression. And I mean, that 6-pick from Onigiri is already hinting towards that.
Mate, are you expecting tidy from Elevate? They don't care about structure. They care about sending it. That is what we know these guys for. And I'm not trying to degrade them at all. This is the best team in APAC from Stage 1. And Elevate, they just play Siege like nobody else in the world. They have this level of energy, this lack of hesitancy, and this insane confidence in their gunplay to just send it. And they're happy to do something a little bit unorthodox. They might not open the main wall that you would expect to be open, or the hatches or what have you. They might not push the conventional areas, but they will get the dubs. That said, 7th Heaven have also had amazing performances in APAC South so far, and on the back of, I guess, a fairly disappointing loss to Wildcard, 7-2 in the previous Playday. These guys are definitely looking for a bounce back.
Now it is a downstairs hold here for 7th Heaven. Some slight extensions committed to. single reinforcement. In fact, single reinforcement of kitchen into dining and the double in there towards security would suggest that we are going to see at least one or two of defensive players commit to a roam. Now, as to who those will be, we'll have to wait and see. I would assume that Souffle might be one. Nonetheless, I'm rating on Onigiri here to activate. Now, his ability probably not going to be as potent here down below, just due to the nature of where the objective is located. That said, if he wants to quickly take map control, that could be the play. I mean, ED currently is on the top floor, and Elevate may try to isolate that player.
There's a roam here for 7th Heaven. The drones send out, and APU may have just seen for a second. What is that shot? Souffle
Jesus.
highlighted in the pre-show, and here he delivers. What an opening onto one of the hottest fraggers from Elevate.
Oh, Lincoln, you missed that pick. DCH finds one back, though. ED, that's him on the top
My
floor.
God.
Not contested by Elevate, and eventually 7th will get the early round advantage. Now, that's 3 picks, and we're not even at the halfway point of the round. Onigiri eventually will use that hook to enter in towards Kids. Sound Q goes out, but he still wins the fight. ED, his head taken clean off, leaves it in the 3-on-3.
Hey, you mentioned the Amaru maybe not having impact, but 100% the reason why ED swung that is because he heard the barricade get destroyed and would not have expected that to be an Amaru. Any other operator, that barricade gets destroyed. The operator isn't actually already in kids' dorms and swinging you. So there you go. Bit of credit to Elevate and Onigiri. That's utility actually netted him a kill.
Next car is being used here on the meeting hatch. Actually, perfectly timed there alongside the lobby hatch. Both will be opened cleanly by Elevate, giving them a couple of different avenues as security is also open. That exposes this defense quite a lot for 7th Heaven. Souffle committed to Freezer. You would assume Spirited will remain in blue, as they also, of course, need to have someone watching the laundry push. So a lot of angles that Elevate could approach from. We'll have to see which one they eventually commit to. At the moment, it's looking like most of this action will come down from the south.
Bit of util left to play with for the attacking side. Flash comes through. Souffle gets very aggressive. Nade follows through. Did destroy that shield, in fact, and with only one nade left, only 20 seconds left, Elevate gonna have to rely on their gun skill here. Souffle swinging that corner, and he finds yet another clean headshot and sits Sapper back down. The last 2 players from Elevate looking to find an ingress, but 7th Heaven will not give them any opportunity. Souffle looking good for another. Spirited's going to take it away from him. BG Man subbing in from the Academy roster. He doesn't find anything at the end of it, and 7th Heaven find the opening defense.
A disappointing conclusion to the round there for Elevate. They did some really good groundwork. They managed to keep it close in the 3-on-3, but then they've decided, filtering through, Laundry was going to be the play, but Laundry Freezer was going to be the play. Ultimately was a misplay. Really well read into there by 7th Heaven. You had Souffle hitting a couple of nutty swings as well. So it's a good first round for 7th Heaven, and they didn't look like they were in the best position late in round 1, but they still held on.
Dockerby 6 pick off of the Monty, as well as Edie bring in the Kaid for some wall denial. We've got good hard breach available here for Elevate. At Dockerby, I guess, looking for a bit of a roam clear. We've already seen earlier today in the first match, a good roam game down around Kitchen can really help out. I believe it was Hayward from the Knights who demonstrated what you can do if you maintain control of Kitchen and server room underneath that bomb site. And that's exactly what 7th Heaven are going to do here. You can see Spirited's already made a rotation. So Elevate will be attempting to utilize Dockerby's calls to locate the players downstairs. We see Cyan and Pika start to make their way down.
Now, unlike Wildcard earlier tonight, Elevate on the attack, electing not to bring the buck, limiting their soft destruction. So even if they do get control down below, their impact will be somewhat nullified by their operator selections. That said, we could still see them commit to this take solely on the fact that they could find a couple of picks if played well. And as you mentioned with the Dockerby in hand, that could aid in that process. That said, early routing would suggest that Elevate are not going for a downstairs clear, at least not immediately. Zappa is going to be one to watch there on the Maverick, but he's repelling at Armory at the moment, so I'm struggling to get a read on exactly what his play would be. You would anticipate something along the lines of Addict or even the Game's Wall if they so wished, but he's kind of stuck in the...
I'm going to be constantly keeping a keen eye on the two subs. Cyan for 7th and BG Man for Elevate. Both tend to play a bit more passive. Oh my god! What is that?
Zappa pays the price.
Pika. Yeah, there you go. Run out from Big Tower. And you mentioned Zappa and the high breach that he's bringing. He is down for the count. And that blowtorch plus the nades gone with him.
Puts a lot of pressure now on BG. As you mentioned, one of the subs. And with that Game's Wall electrified, he'll need to call it out to his team and have someone go down below and clear that Electro Claw off the wall. Not exactly sure where that said claw is positioned, but shouldn't be overly difficult to clear out if played well. Onigiri, though, one of those players who could aid in clearing that claw instead, will apply some pressure from Trophy. We'll now head down below, shoot that explosive right next to the fan, and that should hopefully open up the wall or allow the wall to be open, but it is still electrified. That claw is not being touched, meaning the attack needs to go below. Onigiri will fulfill that, but needs to be careful of the vert. Still wins the fight, will take down the claw, and that's a huge play for Onigiri.
Yeah, massive, and does open up the opportunity now for Elevate. After losing the opening engagement, they've evened things up. They've cleared so much of this utility already, and they are starting to circle. Onigiri, always a player to watch out for Elevate. Pika is also on a bit of a roam all the way downstairs, far separated from sight, but he might catch one of these players off guard if he is able to flank. Cyan also downstairs. So there's a big opportunity here for Elevate to monster this site.
Oh, yep, definitely off the back of that. Onigiri finds one. That's his double for the round, but it gets traded out there by Cyan. He can take control of the Armory stairs and really pose a threat here on the flank. But that does leave Spirited alone on site. Elevate need to try and capitalize on this advantage.
Here comes Cyan with the peak, but DCH holds it perfectly. Spirit is the last one left. Known to be a bit of a clutch master, but this is a big ask in the 1v3. No time, no hope. Elevate. They get themselves back into this game. A good attack, just slowly but surely converting that man advantage as the Vultures began to circle.
Yeah, it was a little bit worrying there at the very end of that round for Elevate in the 3v2. Was probably anticipating them to get a little bit more aggressive, find Spirited, or at least trade it, and then force Cyan back to site. I guess fortunately for them, Cyan probably jumped the gun a little bit early, and then Elevate were able to close out the round. It is a good response on their attack. 7th, however, are going to reattempt that site. Now, I don't know if they'll get as aggressive as they did early round previously. We'll have to wait and see, but it wasn't the best start to that round for Elevate. They really crawled back in the mid-round to make it actually winnable, and Onigiri was one of the players that headed that. One of the best players, I would say, in APAC South. At least he was in Stage 1, and looking to try and find that form again here in Stage 2.
Having a look at the leaderboards. Funnily enough, we actually don't have Onigiri at the top 5 for rating. He is number 1 for entry KD though. And overall, yes, known to be a very, very strong player. Always on the lookout for Mr. Onigiri. Dangerous in the server for sure. The main change that we've seen here with Elevate's lineup, though, is they've just ditched that Dockerby. I don't really blame them for that. I didn't really honestly see the Dockerby having much of an impact. But with that Sledge, I quite like that Elevate has a little bit more flexibility for how they want to deal with the Electric Claws. So, for example, right, you could just nade up through this generator window, and as long as you burn the ADS first, you can clear off the Electric Claw without risking going downstairs into Classroom. That said, Onigiri might not actually be too worried about going downstairs into Classroom because he actually found a pick last time around.
ED just placing said claw at the moment, once again at the top of the game's double wall, and as you mentioned, Dev, a nade through that right-hand window, provided the ADS is burnt. We'll clear that pretty easily. Or you could just go with the fancier option of sending Onigiri down below through the basement. He can make his way up through lobby into Classroom and just shoot it straight off the wall like he did in the previous round. Now, this is a little bit more aggressive from 7th. Peek up inside of Armory, the hatch not reinforced. He doesn't have any utility fortifying this position, but that said, Elevate not really applying that much pressure on him at the moment as DCH gets lit. Pika also does fall. Won't be finished off by that friendly smoke canister. Sapper's also getting lit. Sapper just can't get in the building right now. It's all going off as Pika actually manages to get rezzed.
Yeah, and believe it or not, out of all that, Elevate are the ones at the health disadvantage. You would have thought they would come out ahead. Pika somehow was saved by a Guardian Angel. I just can't believe that aggression. I believe it was Souffle at the master door barricade. Almost finished off Sapper. Now let's... Oh, there you go! He said, I'm going to finish what I started. Poor Sapper is not having any of it. Opening death now 2 rounds in a row. Hasn't found a kill in the first 3. Now let's see how Onigiri goes clearing off these claws. There you go, easy as you like.
Diane down below though, Onigiri unable to find him or finish him off, and we'll need to of course be mindful of that flank. Now Cyan went for a very similar flank last time through lobby, and Onigiri is ready and waiting for that. Elsewhere though, on the other side of the map, Napier applying pressure from down below, and that does take ED down to a critical amount of HP. BG meanwhile has opened up the game's wall, so good progression here from Elevate. They're spotting out utility, they're trying to make sure that is cleared. DCH still has 2 frag grenades that could prove critical here for his team. However, with that Nomad banned out, Elevate need to again be really, really mindful of these flanks.
Oh, there you go. You said it. Now Napew's been punished for it. Onigiri on for a little bit of a flank as well of his own. Pika, prone on an off angle. Is Onigiri aware? Absolutely not. That said, Elevate have found another opening on the site. Now a 2v4, BG Man the only full HP player, and Cyan is prone right up and close to the wall. Surely there's no way that this works out for Elevate. A trade comes through, DCH finds another. That said, 2 more to find, no diffuser on him, and there's just no way that he's going to make that work. Souffle cleans house. Elevate struggling here to really tame 7thHeaven.
Yeah, good reattempt there from 7thHeaven. They managed to correct some of the wrongs that they made in the previous round. They delayed the game's wall from being open for a little bit longer. Their roam as well was definitely a lot more effective, and Cyan in particular kick-starting that over towards White Stairs really helped his team. And unfortunately for Elevate, the team that did take the Nomad off the board, they just weren't, I guess, prepared necessarily for that specific flank. They probably didn't have a drone being able to watch that location. They were also under the pressure from the clock trying to take site control, and at the end it was just a little bit too overwhelming for them, and I guess they need to try and recuperate now. They'll be going back down to basement. Onigiri again will 6-pick onto the Amaru, and we may also see another swift roam clear here from Elevate.
Yeah, it's funny. If I saw an Amaru picked on Oregon, I would 100% be thinking, okay, this is for a top floor attack. You're probably trying to either, let's say, get armory control really, really fast, or you're trying to do some kind of cheeky rush strat on the kids' dorms windows, like we've seen various teams from various regions do in the past. But now Elevate are seemingly exclusively picking the Amaru on their basement attack. So yeah, it must be for that roam clear, which is very unorthodox. Rarely will you see Amaru picked just to get map control fast. Like, usually you pick her with some kind of, I guess, quote-unquote cheese strat in mind, but no, this is just literally a way that Onigiri can get upstairs faster to help with this roam clear. And I really like that creativity.
Yeah, it's really classic Elevate. It's in their DNA to go for wild takes. Now Onigiri will use that hook very early into this round, spots the rotation inside of Addict, and that's already some really nice intel for his team. He can kind of just sit here and wait. No one from the defense likely heard him actually enter that location, so 7thHeaven need to be really careful. ED, I believe, is entering Addict now, and there we go! Onigiri plays it absolutely perfectly, and ED falls early.
What a play. I just love the 11 head that Elevate has. They always are happy to try something a little bit different, think outside the box, and pick an Amaru on a downstairs attack to get map control early. And people are going to be looking at this and saying, oh, nah, she doesn't bring hard reach, she doesn't bring explosive. Why would you do that? No, it doesn't matter. She accomplished her goal.
Yeah. Also has the G8, and we know Onigiri's sharp, so Her impact will still be felt for the remainder of this round, has 3 flashbangs still available as well, which could aid in clearing out some of this utility, keeping in mind that Cyan has peppered those ADS devices around the objective. Meanwhile, though, Elevate has made good progression up above the objectives, those hatches being opened, not being contested by the defense, as 7thHeaven try and hunker down in towards the site, try not to let this man disadvantage really slip away on a Geary. Still probing, still trying to find another pick.
A lot of time still to work with. 7thHeaven feeling a bit of pressure. That said, they should be pretty happy on site with so much util. Like, you've got the bulletproof camera looking into Freezer. You've got the Syria gates. You've got 2 mirror windows, right? Especially for a laundry and Freezer push, I think 7thHeaven is very well set. But if it does come to a little bit of a blue push, they might actually find that there are a couple of holes exposed. Now, that reinforcing off elbow does make things a little bit more snug here for 7thHeaven, but Elevate start to really put this pressure onto the front side.
Spirited kicks things off for 7th, finding a pick as Souffle gets dropped elsewhere. That's inside of Freezer, and that should open up control here for Elevate. Cyan really under the pump with that mirror window popped open, but he swings wide and finds the down. It's traded back. Pika and Spirited to try and hold on. Now, Spirited's locked inside of Laundry. That's a very high-risk position as Pika retakes Pillar. That's a big, ballsy play from him. Spirited as well, able to get out of that position despite Elevate having Freezer control.
This is so strong now for Spirited, and he can take down the Diffuse carrier. That is massive now for 7thHeaven, and Pika can just line up the rest of them. 7thHeaven looking very, very hot here on Oregon.
Such a minor reposition there from Spirited to be able to get out of that position, but the fact he was able to cross what is often just an absolute death box, really significant, allowed him to then have better vision of the site. Unfortunately, that filtered Elevate through Freezer door in towards the long hallway, where they were also greeted there by another defender. So really well played there from 7th. They're manipulating their opponents a little bit here, and Elevate, for whatever reason downstairs, Freezer just isn't the play for them at the moment.
Righto. Well, for 7thHeaven now, they are just really starting to gain some confidence here, gain some traction on Oregon. And Xenox going to be eating his words a little bit, perhaps, after he had so much behind Elevate. I really do think you have to put a little bit of an asterisk next to the results that these teams have in their local competition, right? The way I look at it is Elevate, if I go back and look at their recent Oregon games, 7-3 over XL Light, 7-0 over LBZ, 7-1 over CRX, another 7-1, another 7-2. Like, all of these are happening in their nationals, in their local domestic competitions. And yes, what that tells us is Elevate like to play Oregon, and they're good at it, but they're not really playing teams that are anywhere near their level. And so, if anything, that is just giving information in the form of VODs to 7thHeaven and not giving Elevate solid practice, right? Fortunately, they're going to say, look, Dev, stop ragging on us for a minute because we're not out as of yet.
Where was that? Oh, there you go, just behind the closet. I gotta say, I mean, obviously the update with no bodies is really good when you're inside the server because you can't hide in bodies anymore and all that, but it can be a little bit trickier for us to spot. Maybe it's online cast, the feed isn't as good, but either way, we do spot that body, so thank you, Mandy, on the obs tonight, doing a fantastic job, as always, and Elevate, trying to get their job done, spots the clash there on Agiri, does inside of Attic, just sees the bottom of that shield, but look at that setup, 3 ADS devices, Souffle prone behind the clash. This is APAC South in its embodiment right here.
Souffle is so keen, and he has been very, very hot tonight on the shot. Now, Sapper looking to breach this wall. Souffle just careful of the flanks, but this clash setup in Attic is very, very nice. Elevate, as of yet, not looking to address their primary focus is on that bomb site with some pressure on. Showers hallway from Napier. Here comes the breach onto the meeting main wall. That said, there is so much control of Attic with these 2 7thHeaven players upstairs, and that is going to make things a little bit dicey should Elevate look to form and execute in meeting, because they've got to worry about not only a retake through tower from Attic, but also just that Attic hatch itself provides so much vision and the ability to deny plant. But Elevate are really taking their time and setting up for something here.
I feel like Elevate are the sort of team that will just ignore the hatch, try and get in towards site and deal with it later. Now, that is obviously going to be incredibly risky, but it could work out. Souffle does get lit. He was the one up above, so a couple of bullets as he tries to go for a drop potentially later could prove costly. Now, there is a very awkward engagement elsewhere. Cyan over towards Shower's hallway, swings wide, finds the pick. It's now a 4 versus 4. Elevate not really having much control of site, though, as they think about this execute.
Big flank coming through from ED as well. He has a C4 with the meeting hatch open. He also has a big opportunity to deny using that Nitro tossed up. I like these late round positions from 7thHeaven, but it looks like Elevate's making a diversion. They're actually going to send it all the way through the kitchen hallways. Souffle is the only player here to receive, but ED's made his flank count as he finds 2 big picks. Now Souffle can hold down the fort in server. BG, man, is gonna find one, but surely there's no way he wins this. Tries to force the plant down, but this is gonna be an easy denial. He just saves the KD. Elevate call a tactical timeout.
Ooh, I mean, that's probably the right time to call attack timeout. I'm no expert, but I'd say when you're 1-4 down and struggling at the moment, particularly late round, being Elevate, that is, taking that attack timeout now to try and salvage a 2-4 is the right strategic play. Now, it does mean you burn it for later into the series or into this head-to-head rather, but hey, you've got to take it. And in fact, it feels like sometimes in APAC South, teams really do underutilize the tactical timeout because not only does it give you an opportunity to breathe, try and formulate your plan of attack for the upcoming round, but it can sometimes stall the momentum of an opponent. And 7thHeaven seem to be riding a little bit of a high off the back of the last few rounds, and Elevate really keen to try and disrupt that.
This is really refreshing, isn't it? Seeing 7thHeaven come in with such prowess here against Elevate. I don't know, there's 2 halves of the equation in my mind, right? Firstly, amazing to see that 7thHeaven have bounced back after what has been a pretty disappointing stage so far. Yes, they took down Order in the opening game, but hey, that was the same as what they did in stage 1. Then they went on to lose to Q-Confirm in, I guess, a pretty tight game, which is decent considering how Q-Confirm are on such a tear. But then 7-2 lost to Wild. 7thHeaven know that they're better than that. And I think that this is just showing that 7thHeaven, they are learning from these losses. They're going back and they're saying, look, we can beat anyone. We know that from when we've spoken to ED in the interviews, that they are just determined. And they're always, I guess, regarded as a bit of an underdog. And I think that's really aiding them here against, well, I'm going to say it again, Elevate, Stage 1's best team in all of APAC.
Yeah, 7th so far in stage 2 have shown a few maps, but their one and only win did, of course, come from Oregon. That was against Order, 7-3 in the first Playday. And that was obviously several weeks ago now, but it seems like so far, early impressions are that Oregon is a serious map for them. And whilst they are, of course, on the defense at the moment, we need to take everything with a grain of salt. I'd say that so far, they're doing a really good job in shutting down Elevate, who in stage 1, when they were the stage champs, were very, very scary to watch. It often felt like Elevate were always the team dictating the pace. They were able to manipulate the map they wanted, the way that they wanted, and they ultimately got the results that they wanted because they kind of forced their opponents to cower away, forced awkward gunfights, etc. But so far in this matchup, not really been the case. In fact, 7thHeaven have sort of been the team so far to really dictate the terms of this matchup. They are playing pretty difficult holds around the map that Elevate seem to be struggling with and aren't really complementing their more natural, aggressive playstyle. So props to 7thHeaven so far. Now, they need to be careful of Onigiri, who, look at that. Look at that. How sharp can you be? Souffle gets absolutely torn to shreds.
You want to talk sharp? Souffle has had a real cracker game so far, so taking him down early, definitely the player I would want if I could pick anyone here on 7thHeaven. There's also a C4 gone down as well. So very nice for Elevate in the final attack round. Now, I just did get word from production that was not a tactical timeout from Elevate. They unfortunately did not call the tactical timeout correctly, so they did not get it. And as a result, they should still have one in the bag. Onigiri on for its hair, traded back. 7thHeaven, this roam game is persistent. Even when there are cracks in the armor, they do manage to fight back. But here we go. Such an early opening here of the breach, but Spirit is so keen. This is a massive risky play, but it could have such a big impact. He does get punished, and now Elevate have everything just lined up on a silver platter. All they have to do is take the round.
Yeah, Spirited felt like he had to go for something there. If he finds a pick, he brings the round back potentially for his team. But if he does throw away his life, as he did, likely now makes this round unobtainable for 7thHeaven. It is a 2 versus 4, so not completely unwinnable, but tough nonetheless. Now, Pico has some decent intel off that Yokai. And again, Elevator's starting to stall out a little bit, but they are inching closer towards the site, clearing critical utility. But Pika's inside a pit.
No.
BG, the sub, hits a TK, and now it's anyone's game.
2v2, here come the flashes, and here comes the onslaught. Another flash once again from the Ying. Pew can find the double. Elevate, what a way to close the half and keep themselves alive.
If in doubt, send out some Candelas and spray and pray. Worked out perfectly there for Pew, and Elevate as a whole. Definitely not afraid to shy away from the Ying when required. Now, no doubt, that was a very scary end to the round. They brought a 4 versus 2 into the clutches of 7th off the back of Pika hitting a really nice shot in pit, and then BG hitting a TK. Nonetheless, though, Pew stepped up and said, you know what, lads, if you don't want to finish the job, I will. And with it being a 2-4 half in the end there against Elevate, I think they can be, you know, not happy by any stretch, but they can at least be content that they were able to fight out the rest of that half.
Yeah, very much the situation of that is, I mean, I think I overused the word salvage, but they did save that half. A 5-1 against them would have been really shocking, and I wouldn't say pack it up as of yet, but Elevate would have really been banking on not only having an unimaginable defense half, but also they would be relying on 7thHeaven to make a couple of mistakes on their attack. The fact that Elevate has just got the 2 attack rounds, that's kind of par for the course here. And now, at minimal, all they've got to do is defend Laundry successfully twice and upstairs dorms successfully twice. That guarantees overtime. Of course, this does actually mean that Elevate will need to win the offsite, either kitchen meeting or kitchen dining, at least once if they are to take this out in regulation, and hence the full 3 points. Keeping in mind the grander scheme of this season is the fact that Elevate are kind of been down the toilet, currently sitting on 4 points in 6th place. A far cry from that #1 spot that they were at in Stage 1. And they're going to need the 3 points if they are going to climb up towards those playoffs positions for a shot at the Mexico Major.
Yeah, I feel like that's a discussion we've been having a little bit recently with the Major announced to be in Mexico. We're often talking about which team can finish first here in APAC South and join the first place team in APAC North throughout the regular season and immediately make it through to the Major. But keep in mind that the remaining 3 teams in the top 4 will play off against one another, so we can't discount just how important that is. And Elevate, as you mentioned, one of those teams really trying to fight hard to get their way into the top 4 of APAC South. And I can't believe we're really in a position where we're questioning Elevate's ability to make the top 4 based off their performance in Stage 1, but that's where we find ourselves, the wacky world of Siege, and they really need to fight hard here to get some points against 7thHeaven.
Oh, Onigiri. You love to see it. Man's always cooking something up. Pew is on fire, revitalized these last few rounds. And just like that, it's a 5v3 for Elevate. Pew, still a little bit of a rat room for him in Classroom. 7thHeaven definitely need to get on their bike.
Half round for 7thHeaven so far. They can find this pick in Classroom, then who knows what's possible. But Pew, hyper aware that he's about to be droned, repositions himself, and ED isn't really alongside anybody to trade this out on the other side of the map. Spirited does find one, but doesn't really count for much as ED is dropped. It's a solid first defense for Elevate.
This is what we came to expect. A strong defense half. That said, I already mentioned this. Elevate, they can't afford any mistakes on Laundry and Dorms. They need to just take obviously, the way that it works, right, is once you win a site, it's locked for 2 rounds. So it'll be a Laundry win, a Dorms win, then they go over to the tertiary site. That's a toss-up, but those tend to have really low win rates, so you would expect them to lose that. Then they'll go Laundry and Dorms once again. They have to win both of those, and then that guarantees them overtime. As long as they win the primary and secondary sites each twice, and then in order to win this in regulation, they are going to have to win one of the tertiary sites at least once. So while that was a very convincing round, there's really a kind of no-mistake situation in my mind for Elevate, because if they are to take the 3 points, they have to win 5 in this half.
No easy feat cleaning up a defensive half, even on a map like Oregon, and Elevate will need to continue across the momentum established in the previous round to the top 4. Now, last round, Elevate found a lot of picks offsite, and let's be honest, the round was over before it really begun. Upstairs, however, if it plays out as we come to expect a little bit more traditionally, I mean, you know, put an asterisk on that because this is Southeast Asian Siege, but if it were to play out a little bit more as expected, be a bit more of a late round execute style, then Elevate will really be pushed. Then we get to see just how confident they really are at the moment, just how switched on their synergy is. That is when teams really are tested. It's all well and good to have a couple of fraggers running around the map, finding picks here and there like we saw in the previous round. But when it comes crunch time, if 7thHeaven are really on their game and can set up for an execute, that's when we get to see if Elevate will falter.
Tower control now for 7thHeaven. They're looking to take step 1, put some pressure on Attic. Very passive early positions from ED and Pika. Usually you either go for a master Attic push or you go for a big window white stairs push. 7thHeaven really investing just a lot of time and effort early on to tower. Very rare that you would see this many people here. But knowing that there's a lot of utility on the far side of Attic to deal with, I really like that they just are committing early, right? Like, you can go back and take Master later, but having all of your players here on Attic just means that look at all the control that they have all the way up to Pit. Of course, they can't really move much further than this until they establish better positions elsewhere. Nice C4 shot out of the air as well. Let's see if 7thHeaven can start to formulate and execute position by taking Master next.
7th will rotate, however. It's, as you mentioned, it is good to get some pit control, but it does need to be two-pronged in most cases if you want to pull off a successful attack here up above. Now, the wildcard, of course, for 7thHeaven is ED playing the Ying. We saw Napew be really effective using this operator previously. Let's see whether or not those 3 Candelas and 2 smoke grenades will be helpful here. 7thHeaven. Slow control taken in Master Bedroom. A C4 is avoided. That was from the hands of Napew down below. Unfortunately, though, for 7th, their hard breach, or rather their Thatcher, falls to the hands of Onagiri, who's popping off so far.
And look at that. It means that all that hard work into taking Attic is gone. Souffle's going to try rotate, but now he's got to deal with Onigiri's advanced position. First Candela goes out.
And the mute jammer
would
on the
love
wall, right?
to. Yeah, he would. This is a really rough position now for 7thHeaven.
Unfortunate that Cyan loses his life, but still winnable here for 7thHeaven. Need to try and flush out some of these key players. Onigiri, however, is going to be so dangerous, but taken care of.
Souffle will do what he can with this control. Concussion tries to go through. Second one does land. Napew found one on his roam. Now let's see what 7thHeaven have on the execute. Souffle finds another one, but the execute does not work out for the Ying as ED is punished. Elevate just storm away with it at the end of the round. 7thHeaven fell flat into the wall.
My eyes on that final kill cam, my god. Is that what it feels like to go outside? Oh, wow. I had to rub my eyes for a second after that one. My god, I thought the ring light was bright, but my monitor just went up to like 10,000 brightness off the back of that. I would not want to be in the server getting harassed by the Ying, but I guess fortunately for Elevate, the one player that didn't get flashed was Napier, right? Over towards the top of White Stairs. He was tucked away deep, and with everyone from 7th committing from that side of the map, no one was really in a position to flank from behind and actually get that player. So, well played there by Napier, who is really good with the Ying in hand, and also countering the Ying, which is awesome to see. Unfortunately, a little bit messy there from the attack, but the most important storyline heading out of that round is Elevate have managed to draw things up.
Yeah, and that's good and all, but of course, like I mentioned, really we're going to need to see some strength on the offsides. The primary and secondary just have to be a given. Dorms and laundry, that's not something that you need to celebrate too much about, because it will, I guess the crux of this is going to come in meeting/kitchen dining defenses. Now, we did see 7thHeaven successfully defend kitchen meeting. Let's see if Elevate can do the same. Looking at this setup, one shield to evilize. And overall, a pretty staple setup, very similar operator lineup to what we've seen from in the past. And to me, the thing that is pretty dangerous for the defenders is just the fact that Thatcher's in. Like, how often do we actually see Thatcher in the game, right, guys? And it just simplifies these attacks so much. You want to breach the wall, chuck down an EMP, breach the wall.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, naturally in every lineup, Thatcher is going to be a hard counter to a lot of the defensive selections or the defensive utility that's brought to the table, right? And in this instance, Onigiri is literally the only player that isn't necessarily going to be hard countered by those EMPs just due to the smoke canisters being deployed so quickly in most cases. But outside of that, every other piece of utility can be disabled, which is going to be critical and makes hard holding the site itself really difficult. We're likely going to see Elevate forced to try and go above and make something happen there with the hatch control, but as I say that, it doesn't appear as if the defense is as intent in holding above. Remember, casting our minds back, 7thHeaven loved to hold above. They brought the clash shield, etc. But on this occasion, we're not even seeing the meeting hatch opened up. In fact, it's reinforced here by Elevate.
Does allow for some stronger power positions on site, right, for Elevate, like Sapper here. But man, he's just going to be really feeling some pressure in a minute. That must have been an impact grenade or something to destroy that first exothermic charge, but Spirited can put a second one down. Onigiri on this line can do so much.
Yeah, he could. But again, with that Thatcher on the board, you would expect that 7th, if they spot this shield out, should be able to clear it. I mean, it is, again, going to be tough with Sapper applying some pressure, but oh, Onigiri is taken down. That was ED with a clean shot, Spirited with another, and they're already in sight.
Here comes the execute. So much time to work with, and as you said, absolutely no response from Elevate in terms of the attic presence, and now they'll have to retake. ED has the info, and now he's waiting. Polishes off Napier's head. DCH falls as well to his demise. Flawless round on the attack for 7thHeaven.
Wow, that was really good from 7thHeaven and ED going huge in that round. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to see how he took down Onigiri, but it had to be said from there. It was a domino effect. The rest of the defense completely capitulating there on the side of Elevate. And Dev, I mean, you've set it up perfectly. Elevate, sure, they win, you know, they win basement, they win upstairs. Okay, that's cool. I mean, great. But there's 4 sites on Oregon. You need to be able to defend 3 of them. And unfortunately, they didn't bring the goods there on their first attempt. Now they get to rotate, I guess. So they'll go basement, potentially win that, go upstairs, potentially win that again. But they're not going to be able to close out the map in regulation.
7thHeaven are in a really strong position now. 1 round is all that's needed to guarantee the OT. And yeah, they've got 3 attempts for it. Elevate, I wouldn't count them out yet. I believe, I don't know, you heard our producer, right? Was it TAC for 7thHeaven, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. It's on the back of a win as well. But now, I guess this just goes to show how important these downstairs attacks are. Elevate finally have laundry and supply open once again, and 7thHeaven have an opportunity to spend a little bit of extra time really just nailing down their game plan for this attack. Now, they did bring this exact operator lineup on the attack last time, but we did see the attempt at the Ying on the dorms. Even though it wasn't very effective, I do wonder whether 7thHeaven will try it again, because of course pick phase is not done. They still have the chance to 6-pick in just a moment. And there you go.
Back. No, shame we're not going to see Chanka stuck. Napier jumping across to the mirror, who of course is incredibly potent down below. life a bit more challenging for 7thHeaven.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
Do wonder just how aggressive Elevate will play off site. Maybe we'll see a roam here from Onigiri, for example. He is playing that mute, can place jams around. That said, he's running the shotgun, so that's looking increasingly unlikely. I do think that the best option here for Elevate with their lineup would probably be just sit inside and try and weather the storm. With Mirror on the board, that is the tendency most of the time from the defense, which I guess, unfortunately for 7thHeaven, does nullify their Jackal's selection or 6 pick there a little bit, but nonetheless, on the side of the attack, they have plenty of other options outside of that to get work done. They have hard breach, they have plenty of grenades. I think they'll be okay.
The funny thing for Elevate is, yeah, they've actually quite significantly modified their operator lineup compared to their first laundry supply defense. You mentioned the potential for a roam, and perhaps that's not the case with this mirror present, but it was very much the case in Elevate's previous defense of this bomb site. In fact, they found 2 very, very early roam picks. Remember Napew just being a little rat in classroom? And yeah, I think that's what's kind of scared 7thHeaven here into picking the Jackal. But yeah, like you said, it does then become a little bit more difficult if this comes to a more anchor-centric setup. The lack of that Thatcher will definitely be felt. And I'm just going to say it, guys, with the just messy attacks that we have seen today, I just want people to go for a blue attack. Please just go and try and clear out elbow. Like, just go for that side of the map, please. I know that there's 3 shields, but Thatcher is in. You can EMP any ADSs. Well, mine is banned, for goodness sake. Like, I just hate watching attackers smash their head against the wall time and time again for these laundry freezer attacks that never seem to work.
Yeah, if blue works in Plat 3, I'm sure it's good enough for APAC South. That is my TLDR of that, but yeah. It has been quite interesting seeing how the teams approach down below tonight. As 7thHeaven slowly but surely roam clear the top floor. Now, that again, they're not really going to find anything, and that means that the first half of this round is essentially, I guess, a waste of time, but that is with hindsight. That's 2020, and unfortunately for 7thHeaven, they don't have the outlines that we do, and they need to make sure that above is clear, as when they go for these hatches, they don't want to be flanked. Now, keep in mind, the Nomad was taken off the board by Elevate, and 7th will have that in the backs of their minds, being extra careful. But of course, all 5 defenders are on or close to the objective, and we may now start to see some pressure applied over towards Freezer. I thought Souffle was going to be a little bit cheeky, but no, he falls back. Mirror window does get droned, and I mean, this is really scary to look at if you're on the side of the attack.
I do wonder, though, whether there are mute jammers behind the 2 mirror windows, because if not, there is the potential for ED to use any of his remaining Ascaras to clear it. Yeah, but fortunately for 7thHeaven, there is on the freezer one. Now, the laundry one would be pretty hard to get. Ooh, ED is actually going to get into an engagement here, and he loses his head to Napew. Very cheeky position from the mirror, aggressive, and now the attack just falls to pieces. 7thHeaven desperately tried to drop down electrical hatch, and my god, this is messy. Baited by the reinforcements, Cyan falls as well. Souffle jumps into the fray, but this is just so difficult for 7thHeaven in a 2 versus 4. BG Man aggressive on the door, the diffuser at his feet. DCH forced back, but BG Man subs in and subs out Souffle. Pika, though, for the trade, finds another one, but in a 1v2, there is no time. And Elevate even the scoreline once again.
Unfortunately for 7th, unable to really do much on towards the site. Those mirror windows too difficult to clear out. Blue control was not in their hands, and they were forced essentially to just filter in towards the site, cross their fingers and hope that they could find some picks. But BG was the greeter towards the objective, said, "Hey guys, I'm in the corner, you're dead, end of story." And unfortunately, 7thHeaven couldn't get back in towards the round. It sounds simple when I say it like that, but honestly, it really was not that convoluted of an attack. At the end of the day, 7th just couldn't get a foothold anywhere. A testament to Elevate's ability to set up the site, make it really difficult, and proving, most importantly, that they don't always need to go for eccentric roams and find 2 picks before every single execute. They are able to hold site when required.
The one commonality, though, with all of Elevate's matches and every time that we see them make plays, it's just that they're always keen to do something a little bit cheeky. Like, the first pick there was Napew prone in laundry, so far ahead of where you would expect a player to be. just waiting for ED to come down, walk down the laundry stairs to his demise. Another thing that I really loved there from Elevate that just worked down to a T was the reinforcement bait at elbow. I don't know which player it was, reinforcing off the rotation at elbow in blue, and we had Onigiri still in blue, and Cyan just sprinted in to try and catch off the player reinforcement completely unbeknownst to him. Onigiri is waiting there with an SMG-11 in his hands. It's little things like that that win rounds, and little tricks like that that Elevate are so good at and that they are known for.
Early indications here in round 11 will suggest that 7th spawning over towards the northern side of the map will take quick control. Tower as Peak has already found himself in towards Freezer. Now, it is common to see defenders roaming down below. I mean, Onigiri is one of those that would come to mind, and maybe even BG with some newfound confidence after that last round. But Pika doesn't find anyone, and I mean, that's not his fault. There's no one roaming down below, but there is a player in small tower. I think that's Napier.
Double Claymore.
Is it Napier?
Is he up top? There you go.
Okay.
I mean, Napier does Napier things. That's what he does. Oh, the cursed position, top white. Oh, Napier might actually be able to find a cheeky run out. Here he goes, and the timing could not be better for him. ED goes down. Oh, ready and waiting is Pika. Can this come through, though? The Trout, how does that happen? Napier with the pistol of all things. He is the lifeblood of Elevate, and pulling off things like that will always make the opponent facepalm. The 5-5 here, I can't help but feel we're headed towards overtime. Should Elevate win this, they'll have to go back to meeting, which was terrible for them last time. If 7th Heaven win this, then Elevate have another crack here at Dorms. Either way, it feels like overtime is inevitable. That said, Elevate are the ones most likely to change that. They got to start by winning this round here. That's a nice C4 from Onigiri. Souffle jumps out the window far too late. He's going to sit out for the rest of this round. Elevate are so safe and so confident. Oh no. Unfortunately, there seemed a little bit of a bug there. Spirited unable to walk into the closet. He's going to have to funnel. Not that there was any chance. Realistically, 7th Heaven were going to win this round. Straight into the meat grinder they go. Cyan, 1v5, and there's absolutely no chance he makes this good. The first pick, but at the moment it's just consolation frags for the KD. BG man through the most disgusting pixel I have ever seen. Sends Elevate to match point.
Big result there for Elevate. Just need to be able to close it out here, though. I mean, that's really question, isn't it? Can they play this tertiary side? It looks like it'll be meeting in kitchen. That is where they have been challenged previously and need to show up again to try and close out this matchup. Of course, easier said than done, but I'm interested to see what exactly will change up here. Elevate, keep in mind last time they attempted this objective, they reinforced the meeting attic hatch. They found it really difficult to actually hold anything meaningful in towards the site. They completely fell apart in the end, and it was ED for 7th Heaven to, I guess, dislodge them completely. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Looks like we got a quick rehost, so hopefully it doesn't take too long and get back in.
Yeah, well, bit of a break here while we sort that out. But yes, for Elevate, they do have the match point, but yes, they are going to have to win on the tertiary site. Bit rough. I feel like it's just inevitable that we are going to head to overtime. I said that quite a few times already. One thing I will say for Elevate is, we got word from the admins is, interestingly, they can't actually take a tactical timeout because their coach is unfortunately not present tonight. and you need your coach to call a tactical timeout. So if anything, that does give 7thHeaven a little bit of an advantage here in that they obviously took their own tactical timeout and they had that opportunity to do so. But yeah, Elevate not so much. That said, this rehost, I guess, could be a little bit of a tack timeout for Elevate. They can really discuss what they're going to do here on this meeting defense. We looked at it last time around. It ended up being a flawless round for 7thHeaven. And yes, I think that Elevate have a lot of way to go in terms of their setup on that side. So I do wonder whether they're going to do the same kind of strategy again and just try and, I guess, tighten it up the way that they play it. Or they're just going to throw that out the window and try something different. If anything, I think that throwing that out the window and just trying to make plays like we saw from Napier last round, or run out small tower, hanging around in showers, getting a kill with his pistol, I think that's the Elevate that I want to see here to potentially take the map 7-5.
Yeah, I know I've said it previously, that Elevate can sometimes have a tendency to maybe sometimes lean, if it's even possible, to lean too heavily into going for these early picks and being ultra reliant on that. But I get the impression that on a tertiary objective like this, if sitting in sight and trying to play your setup just isn't going to work, then why not just risk it? You're probably a higher percentage to actually pull off some of these crazy early round plays, given that you're Elevate, you know what you're doing. It is your most comfortable play style. At least that's what we think it is from an outsider's perspective. So we may well see that again in this upcoming round. I'm not too sure. I'm hoping that this rehost is nice and quick and we can get back in and find out for ourselves. But I mean, 7thHeaven have got to be feeling the pressure as well a little bit on the other side. Yes, their attack was super clean on meeting last time, but trying to replicate that kind of proficiency is always going to be difficult. Being consistent in Siege is naturally incredibly challenging, so they'll be looking to step up to that challenge.
Yeah, well, the stars did align, I guess, and the one thing that we don't 100% know with 7thHeaven's flawless attack on meeting last round is how ED actually managed to kill Onigiri. If you remember, Onigiri was playing behind that shield in meeting as the smoke. He had the FMG with a 1.5 times script. He was in the perfect position to deny or at least slow down that execute. ED killed him somehow. And when I looked back on the VOD, I was trying to see whether ED had used Hibana to breach the meeting wall that goes towards Garage, and maybe ED got angled that way, but no, it looked completely solid to me. So I guess ED must have actually somehow snuck into Split and shot Onigiri from behind without Elevate even refragging that, which seems so unlikely, and honestly it seems like something that'd be very unlikely to reproduce. What I would love to see for 7thHeaven is, I mean, Thatcher's in. Just use Thatcher and Hibana to breach open that back wall, and that kind of just completely disregards all of Elevate's setup, because you have all of their utility facing one direction, and suddenly there's a hole behind them. They can't really play their positions. So 7thHeaven, in my opinion, have every reason to win this round, and I'm definitely looking at Elevate to, like we were saying, make these plays. Just embrace the Elevate that we know and love, and that's the way that they will win this 7-5. If they don't do that, I think that we're going to go to overtime.
Yeah, well, Elevate, of course, heading into tonight, they're just on the edge of the top 4. They're really looking to bump up where they are in the standings, and unable to do that. To be able to do that, my words are just completely falling apart during this rehost. Elevate will be looking to get the full 3. Now, if they achieve that, then all of a sudden we're talking about them just absolutely flying up. Now, I don't know if Liquipedia is 100% up to date. I'm going to refresh it to make sure that my math is, at least somewhat accurate. So I'll let that quickly refresh. It would shoot them up to basically equal second with Knights and Wildcard on 7 points. So that's a really big jump up for them, and that is the discussion we were having a little bit earlier. Elevate, they're looking to make the top 4. You don't need to finish first to go straight to Mexico. You can still, of course, go to the APAC playoffs, and for them at the moment, that is looking like the most likely outcome. Not impossible for them to finish first, but very unlikely. But I mean, of course, the same can be said for 7thHeaven, right? Heading into this Playday, they're only trailing Elevate by a single point. If they won, they themselves would also get into the top 4. So a lot to ride on this matchup. Unfortunately for 7thHeaven, they have let that full regulation win slip away. So the maximum they can get is 2 points, and that would draw them with Invictus. Waiting to see Invictus play tonight, to whether or not that will shake that mid-table up a little bit more. But yeah, the stakes for both of these teams pretty high for this next round.
Look, now that we talk about the standings and how these teams are shaped up so far, realistically, I feel like I'm going to cop a little bit, maybe from Xenox for saying this, but is it possible that Elevate could actually take number 1? I reckon it might be. Like, hear me out here. They could get, if they pull through this round, don't let it go overtime, they pull out the 3 points, they end up tying with, well, that would be, I think, 3rd place. They would be tied with Wildcard, and they are below Knights because they don't have the head-to-head. Then they got Wildcard in their next Playday, which I would definitely back Elevate into. Obviously, hard to say with Wildcard and Elevate being in mixed form at the moment, but I'd back Elevate. You know, I think it's totally possible for them to win that with all the 3 points. Then they've got Q-Confirm, which, yes, Q-Confirm's at the top of the standing and they're in hot form right now, but Elevate have historically shaped up very well against Q-Confirm. These are 2 Thailand teams that have been facing each other since the good old Pro League days, and Elevate have always seemed to have Q-Confirm's number, so I would say that I would back Elevate into that, which would also mean they had the head-to-head against the other team contending number 1, and then it's just a game against Invictus on the last Playday, which, again, I would back Elevate to win. So I actually can see a world here where Elevate redeems themselves in their final 3, potentially 4 Playdays here. But I think that the difference between going to overtime here and potentially getting only 1, maybe 2 points, and locking out this round and getting all 3 is potentially the first step in that, and potentially one of the linchpins to that possible miracle run. I think that is actually, if you start to look into it, it's fairly likely that if Elevate can have a bit of a return to form, that yeah, they could get that direct invite back to the Mexico Major.
I haven't seen any angry messages from Xenox in the Discord chat, so I don't think he's too upset at what you've said. And honestly, it makes logical sense if Elevate managed to find their stage 1 form. Who knows? It just is, again, a testament to how close the league is. Now, a lot needs to fall in place for Elevate in particular to make it because of that head-to-head with the Knights and the fact that they are heading into this second half of the second stage. Trailing, they are behind. Unfortunately, they didn't have the best of starts, and a lot of other teams are ahead of them. But they get this next round, then that could, I guess, be a sign of things to come. But as we sort of, I mean, let's circle this conversation around, right? As we said, this next round for Elevate is going to be tough. Let's just say it. They sucked last time they defended this site. They really need to change up this setup because it was pretty weak. 7thHeaven read into it. They need to change something up heading into this next round. If they do that, if they pull it off, who knows? Maybe we can back them in to take them out.
When you ban the Nomad instead of the Thatcher, like Thatcher is in, it means that trying to play behind defensive setups is very difficult. When you ban the Nomad, flanking is much easier. That is Elevate's strengths. That's what they thrive in. And yes, we've seen Elevate just win 2 rounds where they've kind of played quite passively behind strong setups, but that's because it's been in tandem with this sporadic aggression, with these playmaking that we know Elevate for. So I think that, yeah, have your good setup, have your cheeky little shields and your Yokai drones, whatever you want, but have Napew jumping out windows, have him going for flanks, have them putting the pressure on, because that's what we know Elevate for, and that's what they are so good at, and it is something that has caught 7thHeaven off guard this matchup so far. So I think that Elevate have undoubtedly looked like the better team here, and I can reference the fact that they were able to actually take a win onto Dorms, which is something that 7thHeaven were not able to do. In fact, Elevate won 2 attacks onto Dorms, when 7thHeaven haven't won a single one so far. I think that this is very similar to the story that we saw in our opening match of the day, Knights and Wildcard, where Knights just straight up looked like the better team, but Wildcard were clawing it over the edge a little bit here. And yeah, I think if Elevate just embrace what we know them for and what we love them for, then they can 100% win this final round here without dropping any points to overtime.
Yeah, I do wonder how aggressive Elevate are going to play this next round, and just how they're going to be able to pull that off. I don't know if their confidence has taken a hit potentially in this second stage because they aren't playing as well as we have come to expect. Or, I mean, maybe on the flip side, other teams have caught up, but I don't see that as being the more likely option. I do think Elevate maybe have just dropped the ball a little bit, and sometimes that can just come down to the mental aspect of Siege. Incredibly powerful. If you don't think you're going to win that next gunfight, if you don't think you're going to win this next round or the next map or the stage or however far ahead you want to look, you're not going to win. You have to back yourself in. Siege is a confidence game through and through, and I mean that can be said for basically any professional sports star. If your head is not in the game, you're not going to win. So let's see if Elevate can rock up to this next round. We are back off the rehost. Round 12. Elevate looking to successfully defend Meeting Hall and Kitchen. If they do so, they get 3 points. They will catapult themselves up into the top 4. 7thHeaven though, if they manage to successfully attack this site once again, we head to OT.
Looks like for the most part, Elevate are actually going for a very similar setup to what we saw previously. Now, a couple of operator changes. Having a look, we've still got Onigiri on the smoke, likely to be putting that shield down in the same place. We see him doing that right now. Now, this was the linchpin player that died in the last round to ED, who I reckon must have just gone to this split double door and somehow landed a shot on him through that. So Onigiri is going to really make sure he has that shield lined up perfectly so he can play it well. But the differences here is like no more Maestro, and we've got the mirror in. So, yeah, I am curious as to how Elevate are going to play this. It's one thing to have a nice setup, but like we've been saying time and time again, it's on players like Napew to make these plays. And if that happens, if Napew takes that opportunity with both hands, I think that it could work.
Well, the Thatcher has been brought here by Cyan, and that opens up the opportunities for the attack drastically and will make life difficult for Elevate, no doubt, especially if they're not going to play aggressive. Now, Attic hasn't been extended to. Attic hasn't been open. It has once again been reinforced here by Elevate. We were critical of that last time. Now, again, that may be unjustified. We'll have to wait and see whether or not Elevate fall to the same pitfalls they did last time. But I don't know. It makes me feel a little bit uneasy seeing that that hatch reinforced, not being held aggressively here by a team that loves to play aggressive. Now, as I say that, I do like that little mirror there on the rear stage. That does make things a little bit more difficult here for the hard breach of 7th Heaven. But if you have a Habana on the board, ED can deal with that pretty swiftly. And look at that. A nice line of sight exposes meeting. Cyan! Oh! Cyan finds the one tap. Sapper, sit down.
And on the back of that, 7th Heaven now with a 5v3, a two-man advantage. Onigiri knows he needs to make a bit of a play here. So much time for 7th Heaven to do this right. This is where we look at Elevate and say you need to make some plays. Napew is the playmaker, but he's been taken out. DCH is in a good position to have some mobility. And Onigiri as well, like if he lands a couple of headshots here, even just the one, it could really open up this round. But he's burning his smokes really early on.
Oh. Such a close conclusion to this round, despite 7th having such a strong man advantage. It could wither away as Spirited will drop the diffuser. Now, there is a player just outside kitchen hallway, but not really in a position to retake that at the moment.
Oh, that's
Drones
info.
in sight. That's big. 50 seconds left. Elevate looking to just hold on here, but it's going to be tough as ED finds another.
Onigiri and DCH to save this map and take the 3 points with no OT. But 7th Heaven are on the cusp, and Onigiri is holding on. ED in for the refrag. It's on DCH now in the 1 versus 3. The 7th Heaven have everything going for them, and that's the long angle for Cyan. Opened it up with a one tap, and he closes the final kill as well, puts it to bed, and we are going to overtime.
Cyan looking so sharp in that round. I mean, it wasn't even his EMPs that had the biggest impact. It was the L85. The man absolutely unleashing there onto Elevate, who once again falter on that objective. For whatever reason, they cannot win a tertiary site here on Oregon. But thankfully for them, heading into OT, they only need to defend basement and then up above. So things now start to look a little bit more positive for them. Sure, they didn't get the full points in regulation, but at least now they look okay to get the 2 in OT.
Definitely 7th Heaven are on the back foot once again. They might have sent it to overtime, but like you said, Elevate have a distinct advantage here starting defense. Let's talk about 7th Heaven's laundry supply attacks for a minute. Now, the first one completely picked apart on the roam. They lost 2 players early, and it was just the Napew show. The second time, it was a full anchor strategy from Elevate, but some aggressive positions netted them the victory. Now, no mirror this time around. No Kaid either. In fact, this seems to be a little bit more of an aggressive hold from Elevate, both the Mute and the Mozzie. We've also got the Vulcan shields plus the smoke shield. So mostly it's like a 50-50 of info denial and util sync for Elevate.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb and
Elevate have been loving their deployable shields in this matchup, creating a lot of cheeky angles. And talk about cheeky Nepew
Oh,
at the
yes.
front door. He might be on here. There are players that spawned out to the south, but oh, he falls off. Off. He does survive, but also doesn't find an early pick here. Again, something Elevate thrive off is that first pick, but on this occasion, that won't be the case. And 7thHeaven can establish themselves over towards Small Tower, start taking map control from the west, and do their usual routing. But Souffle has been downed elsewhere in spawn. What?
I'm as confused as you are, mate. I have absolutely
You just like
no
trip
idea.
over the tire and just like
Maybe
splat.
there was some kind. Maybe he was like frozen or something and needed to get downed to be reset.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speculate. 7thHeaven already at a health disadvantage for some unknown reason. Elevate looks like they've actually fallen off this roam, and so much time now wasted. Actually, Napew's still roaming up above. Now, I'm just going to touch on the fact that I really have. We put a lot of pressure on Napew and said he needs to make plays, he needs to be aggressive. But last round, like, he was taken down with no impact. So it's always easy for us to sit back and say, look, man, you just go out there and pop off. But yeah, obviously, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes he's going to get punished. So it's a very hard game of making that decision on his behalf to make sure that he's not getting punished.
Attackers drop the diffuser.
Well, a damaged Souffle taking control up above. The rest of his team pretty content to start opening up the hatches. Napew, though, is in a position to have an
Oh
impact.
my
There we go.
God.
Pika is completely taken down, runs in, and absolutely caught off guard. Had the blinkers on. Didn't see him to his right. And Napew cheekily repositions to maybe try and get another.
Well, that's the thing, you know, you got to do your due diligence with the droning. And here it comes. Napew spotted. They know he's in meeting. Now he has a chance, and he finds another one. ED punished. This is the roams that we expect from Napew. Now, Spirited, Pop Flash looking to peek on through. Souffle finds it. Now, Spirited has to be careful because a player from Elevate has snuck up into T2 on a Geary. He's going to find the freest kill of his life in a second as he hears the flashbang go off. This should be an easy kill. Spirited goes down. Elevate have done everything they can to put themselves in a strong position to take this round.
20 seconds on the board. It's a 2 versus 4 here for 7thHeaven. They do not have the diffuser in hand, and this round is all but lost, you would think,
Seconds remaining.
for the attack. But let's see what they can do.
10 seconds to go.
Souffle and Cyan, just Souffle. Hasn't had an encounter all game except for his teammate in spawn, and he is finished off. A nice flawless round for Elevate on the back of Napew starting strong with that roam, punishing the mistakes from 7thHeaven. Once again, Elevate have match point.
7th, though, on the defense now, could start to mount a comeback. Now, heading into overtime, it was always going to be an uphill battle for them, but it is imperative that they put their best foot forward, win this round, and then hope that somehow Elevate will lose one of the primary sites. That's the best plan of action that they have heading in to this round. Unfortunately for 7thHeaven, regulation not quite going the way they would have liked, at least not in the second half, and did sort of set themselves up, I guess, for a failure, but I mean, how much of a failure can you call it if you take Elevate, the previous stage champions, to overtime? I think that alone is a pretty awesome feat.
100%, but that said, 7thHeaven have had a pretty slow season so far, losing to Wildcard, losing to Q Confirmed. Their only win was against Order. That was on Oregon. I feel like 7thHeaven, from talking to ED in interviews in the past, unfortunately we haven't had one for a while now, he does have confidence in 7thHeaven. He said, look, we're done being the underdogs. Like, we are ready to play on the same level of these other teams. And against a weakened Elevate who are not in form, this seems like such a good opportunity for 7thHeaven to get those points and rocket up the standings, make it to the APAC playoffs like they did in Stage 1. Now, of course, the difference being here in Stage 2, there's actually a major spot to fight for through that APAC playoffs rather than just the SI points we saw from 7thHeaven previously. So, if anything, they have even more to fight for. That said, I don't see it happening here. Elevate are definitely ahead. They have the advantage of even losing this round means that they've got another strong defense site to go to. But I love the fact that since there is less pressure on them, they're more happy to make a daring play and pick this Monty.
Yeah, Monty inside of blue could pose a serious threat to this defense. Now, it is, of course, the first time we're also seeing heavy contesting of the blue bunker, which I'm sure has got you excited, Dev, but me as well, because I don't mind seeing this part of the map see some exposure, and Spirited will be the defender under pressure here in this round. Now, Cyan trying to keep these attackers at bay, but there really is only so much he can do with that Montang in play. Pika does have a Nitro Cell, and with that deployable shield dropping, will throw it out. But look at that. It has had literally zero impact.
But why didn't we see this earlier? Like, Thatcher is in, and Wamai is out. EMP, clear the shield, easy as you like. Spirit is going to try hold on as long as possible, but there's a timer on this. He's only got 3 smokes to burn. Now, eventually, he might fall back and go for a reinforce, but with Napew on the Monty, he can really put some pressure on Elbow.
Onigiri elsewhere on the Zofia, looking to maybe find a pick, or at least establish control of Big Tower, and that is what Elevate need to do here, try and get control of Pillar and complement the pressure that they're applying over towards blue. It is going to be near impossible to just straight walk into the site here, and that's why Elevate need to go for a two-pronged approach. I mean, that's not to discount Napew's efforts, though, because he is causing a lot of issues, and it does mean that 7th Heaven need to dedicate players to watch this position so that that shield can't just walk in. Smoke grenades as well available here to the attack. 1 frag as well. That's quite a bit of utility that 7th Heaven need to be mindful of, who they themselves only have 1 C4 in response. That's in the hands of ED, who could play deep. Talk about going deep, it is the Montang at the moment, as Cyan elsewhere will drop Sapper. Pika, can he find one? He does, that's Onigiri down. 7th Heaven doing a great job here.
15 seconds remaining. Attackers have located a bomb. 10 seconds to go. Attackers dropped the diffuser. 5 seconds left. Attackers recovered the diffuser.
Ah.
Attackers are activating the diffuser.
Well, Dev, you can take a deep breath. What a performance from you and Elevate themselves. They can take a deep breath as well. They finally close out that match in overtime. Now, unfortunately for them, they only get 2 points out of a possible 3, but hey, it's better than nothing, and especially considering how badly regulation started for them. The fact that they were able to mount a comeback is really, really impressive. So props to Elevate for that performance. They'll be happy that now they can start to build some momentum heading into the second half of Stage 2.
Wow, Elevate did make it work at the end. Definitely a much-needed win for our Stage 1 champions. And 7th Heaven certainly gave them a fight, but I love the Monty pick in that final round. Elevate knew they didn't necessarily have as much pressure on their shoulders, knowing they could always fall back onto that second defense in that 15th round, but sometimes just making that gamble with the Monty is exactly what you need. And the fact that as well, 7th Heaven found the first 2 picks that round, putting it into a 5v3, Elevate to come back from that is pretty monstrous. So massive credit to them. They definitely earned that victory in my eyes.
Yeah, I think ultimately, if it had have gone to that 15th and final round, we did set it up like Elevate were in a really good position still to close it out. But the fact that they were able to do it on that attack, I think only elevates their, excuse the terrible word there, elevates their result there. A really good performance to just close it out. Now, unfortunately, as I said, they don't get the full 3 points, which could prove really costly if they're trying to gun for that top position, Dev. Like you said, it is still a possibility. Maybe not so much now, but you never know how I guess the rest of the results could fall. And you know what, from here on out, they can try and build some meaningful momentum, which they were lacking in the last.
Yeah, much needed for Elevate, but let's see what the desk reckons. Over to you, Xenox.
Elevate able to rise in the final moments and pick up the win. Much needed. Even though it's only 2 points, Raven, it does get into the top 4, at least momentarily. Of course, we've still got one more game to go. But look, it really did go down to the wire. I was kind of half joking when I said it was going to go to 8-7 at the very beginning when we threw to the boys. But hey, we got pretty close. 8-6 to Elevate. It's an intriguing one, isn't it? Because they got the win, but it doesn't feel like the Elevate of old in this win.
Yeah, look, they're still definitely struggling. I mean, 7thHeaven were really in that for, obviously, the whole map went to OT, but yeah, they were put to the test, and, 7thHeaven are sitting in 7th place right now. So Elevate did get away with the win. They only got 2 points, though, certainly going to be disappointing for them because it could have kept them in equal ties with Wildcard and Knights. They really are in the back foot for this stage, and certainly by no means safe in a playoff position right now. They're going to have to continue fighting right through to that last Playday.
Scary times ahead for both of these teams. I think that when you look at the standings and the fact that both of them were sitting, 6th and 7th place before the order win just before, it really 2 points just is going to be devastating at the end of the season. I think that's the big talking point that I was trying to make in the previous game with Raven when we were actually casting. Goodness me, it felt like a bloody year ago at this point, almost an hour and a half ago it was that. 2 points is going to really hinder them. And I do think that maybe they will start to mount a bit of a comeback, a bit of a run toward the latter end of the season. And then you look at the side of 7thHeaven, they had a really good showing. I think we could all put our hand up and say that the fact that went to overtime, it shows the spirit that we have from 7thHeaven, excuse the pun with spirited on the roster, but there is a lot to really bring back before we even start talking about 7thHeaven that we saw in stage 1.
Yeah, certainly so. Well, we're going to go and have a chat with Onigiri from Elevate off the back of their win. Close fought win.
Hello,
Congratulations, firstly, Onigiri. It just feels like that's maybe something that you guys really needed as a team. Get those 2 points, get a win. It's been a rough start to the season.
Yeah, for me, I'm happy but sad at the same time because we couldn't close it up at like 7-5. We took it overtime and we only get 2 points, and we aim for the playoff right now.
Yeah, no, well, I think it's fair enough, Onigiri. You guys were, stage 1 champions, and coming into this stage, it just, as Xenox alluded to, and as you have just said, hasn't been the greatest start. Obviously, you still have time to make that up. But I want to talk about this game specifically. What was it when you came into the second half? I think you were 4-2 down. I know that Oregon is a defended-sided map, but what are the comms like coming into the second half? What do you talk about in terms of the mental side of the game?
We say to each other that don't lose hope, we can come back, and after we get opening kills and we just say fall back to the side, we can hold because we have like number advantage of the player. Yeah, that's
Right.
most of it.
Yeah. No, look, as we said, it's no stranger that you guys have struggled a bit this stage, and I'd just be curious to get your insight. Do you feel like that is issues that you guys have had since stage 1, or do you feel like maybe your opponents in APAC South have started to really improve and the competition is tougher? It'd be great to hear what you think the difference is.
I think both, because we was stage 1 champion and every team focusing on taking us down, and we need to keep improving. And Angry X is dropped because he feel like the momentum in the team is not going well for him. That's why we, after we lost to Order, after we lost to Order, we decided to change BG Man instead of him, and we only have like 1 week to sync our momentum with BG Man, and I'm pretty happy with this result today.
Should be very happy. 7thHeaven have proven, of course, they're a team that can, fight until the end. They're very difficult to defeat at times. I guess just your final thoughts and final shout-outs for the game.
Thank you for Elevate fans for supporting us, and we will try to make it to playoff, and you'll get that ticket to the major.
Thank you very much, Onigiri, and look forward to hearing you come on for a chat again sometime in the future.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Always the most respectful of the bunch is Onigiri. Big win for Elevate. They needed it, Raven. It was something that, had they not been able to get at least 2 points from this particular match, they would have started to really feel the pressure of maybe missing out on top 4, which is staggering for the stage champions from stage 1.
Yeah, it really is. Certainly an uncomfortable spot for them in the standings before tonight, but getting those 2 points will bring them back in touch with that middle group. And more importantly, it does keep them ahead of Order because, as Onigiri mentioned, they did have that loss to Order recently. So if they end up on equal points with the likes of Order for 4th, 5th, they're going to lose that head-to-head. So they need to try and keep ahead of that pack now. And it's a really tough position for them to be in because every match seriously counts a lot right now in this part of the stage.
Yeah, it's push comes to shove on the last 3 play days. We talk about this being the pivot play day. This is where teams can turn a season around. Yep. And look, I would say that arguably Elevate have the opportunity to do so, especially when we're playing so freshly again on Thursday. They have a chance to go back-to-back here and make a statement and make a claim for playoffs. So I'm incredibly interested to see how them and how BG Man kind of evolves into this roster.
It's definitely going to be fascinating to watch Elevate towards the final few play days as they make their way towards the playoffs. We are going to go to a break. When we come back, one final matchup. It is Invictus Gaming versus Q Confirmed.